the Gulf States Newsroom, this is the Gulf States Gumbo, your weekly serving of stories from Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. I'm Managing Editor Tyler Pratt, chopping it up this week. On today's show, the team looks back at 2024 and some of the moments they can't stop thinking about.
How you liking the grades so far? How you like the school?
The school, I give it a 0 out of 10.
Here I have muscadines. You guys familiar with muscadines?
I feel like I remember growing up eating these. I grew up kind of in the country.
In the country? Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm.
Has a very familiar taste.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say thank you for allowing me a second chance.
Amen.
I'm grateful for that. Probably, if it wasn't against the law, I'd jump on you and just give you a big old hug. You know what I'm saying?
That's all coming up on the Gulf States Gumbo.
The Gulf States Newsroom is a team of journalists working with NPR and local public media stations in Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana to cover the issues that matter to you. Email us, connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org.
Thanks for joining us, and happy holidays. We've come to the end of another year and are looking back on 2024. It's time for a Gulf States Newsroom tradition where the team reflects on moments that stick with them, whether or not they made it into the story. Here are just a few of them.
My name is Drew Hawkins, and I cover health equity for the Gulf States Newsroom. I'm based in New Orleans, but I get to travel all around the region and meet all kinds of different people. And I meet people who are sometimes in really tough spots. And one of the stories I did last year was about opioid addiction in Birmingham, Alabama. And the helper I found there is a woman named Suzanne Smith. She spends her nights meeting up with people living on the street who are struggling with addiction, her people, as she calls them. She gives them supplies like bandages, clean syringes, clothes, food, things like that. But she also gives them inspiration. Before she leaves, she hands them one of these little blocks from the dollar store that come with motivational quotes on them. Like this one she gave to a man named Roy who was living under a bridge.
It says your greatest creation is always going to be your life story.
Oh, yeah!
That moment is really powerful to me. That even in a hard situation, there's always hope. And so in the news and in life in general, really, when things seem hard or hopeless or scary, look for the helpers. And as I look forward to my coverage next year, I'll be doing the same.
I'm Maya Miller, Community Engagement Reporter for the Gulf States Newsroom, and my end-of-the-year fave is when I visited Lounsboro, Alabama, and I ended up at a mobile food pantry at a church.
And let's do 4 bags of limes per family.
And that's where I met Viola Loving and her 3 dogs. Viola Loving has been living out of her truck for over a year, and she's been battling health issues for even longer. And as I'm talking to her about what the food pantry means to her. So you said it means everything to you.
Yes. When you ain't got nothing, they're God sent.
I hear barking, and I look, and I say, oh, you have 2 dogs? And she pulls out another dog. She says, no.
3 of them. Them are little protectors.
She refers to them as her protectors because they alert her when someone's coming up to her truck whenever she's trying to find a moment to rest.
My little bodyguards. They're very good at letting me know. Outside the thing.
My name is Joseph King, and I cover sports and culture for the Gulf States Newsroom. I'm based in Birmingham. I covered a lot of cool things this year, like John Batiste coming to Birmingham and the jazz history in the city, and Major League Baseball honoring the Negro Leagues at Rickwood Field. But something that really stood out to me wasn't even anything I reported on. It was when I talked to students at Huffman Middle School's career fair back in May before summer break.
Come back and talk to me, bro. Get one of my cards.
I asked the students to interview each other and let them use my equipment.
You in the club with Big Time. Who am I here with?
Todrick Stewart.
Spell it out for me. Spell it out for me.
TODRCKSTEWART.
Todrick Stewart. All right. So where you planning on going, like, bro?
The NFL.
NFL, my man. All right.
What's your name? What's your name?
William.
How you liking the 7th grade so far?
Pretty average.
He recorded. What's your name?
Deja.
How you liking the grade so far? How you liking school?
The school? I give it a 0 out of 10.
These moments stood out to me because, one, that was my old middle school, and I saw myself in them. Seeing them trying to get comfortable with the microphone and awkwardly asking questions, I remember that same feeling. And who knows, maybe a few of the students walked away knowing they want to be a journalist one day. Next year, I'm going to build off everything I accomplished and worked on in 2024 and continue to represent the community the best way I know how, with my writing and my voice.
You're listening to the Gulf States Gumbo. Today we're hearing from Gulf States newsroom reporters about the moments from this year that will stay with them. Over the past year, our team of reporters have brought numerous impactful stories from around Alabama, Louisiana, and Mississippi to local communities and national audiences. We covered the return of a sacred mound deep in the Louisiana bayou that was taken from indigenous people more than 100 years ago.
It's unprecedented that we see someone willingly giving land back.
We heard from the oldest living Negro League baseball player who was honored in Birmingham this year.
Baseball didn't do anything for me. I did something for baseball.
Our team investigated nightmare water bills that cost people in Jackson thousands of dollars.
So we got this bill.
This bill right in front of you. It's a bad day.
I'm reading the
Very
bill.
bad day.
It says total account balance $19,526.57.
We also met Black cowboys celebrating Juneteenth at the rodeo.
We just keeping the tradition going and having fun with it and living our Black life.
But there's also a lot that gets left on the cutting room floor. Today's Gumbo is a chance for those moments to shine. We continue our reflections with economic mobility reporter Stephen Basaha.
There's one moment this year that really felt like covering history for me, and that was the Volkswagen assembly plant workers in Chattanooga, Tennessee, voting to join the UAW.
Test. All right, we are at the Union Hall.
I drove up to watch the results at a union watch party in a local union hall, and it really leaned into the party vibe of Election Watch Party. I did a lot of great interviews and had good conversations.
250 to 29!
But what really stood out was just a burst of cheers every time the count total got updated.
600! Woo! 600 for the union, 163 against the union.
Until they just needed 10 more votes. Now, I have a lot of experience covering unions in the South, and I've seen a lot of small union victories and very large defeats. And that was still to come for the UAW. Just a month later, Mercedes assembly plant workers in Alabama voted against unionizing. Yet this was the first major union victory I saw in the South, and the people there felt it too, how big of a moment this was. You could hear it. Now we'll see what's coming next. Volkswagen and the union, they're still in negotiations, and that could lead to more union interest in the South or apathy. Either way, I'm looking forward to following it in 2025.
My name is Danny MacArthur, and I cover environmental justice for the Gulf States Newsroom. I'm based in Jackson, Mississippi. In my reporting, I've ended up spending a lot of time sweating in the sun on farms across the region. In July, I went to Iowa, Louisiana, way out in the southwest part of the state, to report a story for NPR's Climate Solutions Week.
You can come on through.
I met up with Hilary Gobert, who is using climate-smart methods to grow his crops. He took me and photographer Leslie Gamboni around the fields to look at the variety of crops. As we walked around, he had us try one of them.
And here I have muscadines. You guys familiar with muscadines?
They're sort of like grapes, but more round.
I feel like I remember growing up eating these. I grew up kind of in the country.
In the country?
Mm-hmm.
Has a very familiar taste.
Mm-hmm.
Good, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good.
I love that tape because it shows what it's like to be out in the fields with people when they are doing what they love. He was so proud of everything he was growing on that farm, and you could hear it in his voice.
Now, these are native. We used to harvest those out of the woods as a child, and my father used to make a wine out of it as well.
And everything he did was so intentional, down to growing sunflowers to attract pests because he doesn't believe in using pesticides. I'm looking forward to telling more stories about climate solutions that everyday people are testing out in our region.
My name is Kat Stromquist, and I cover criminal justice for the Gulf States Newsroom. I'm based in New Orleans. This fall, I was visiting with some advocates at a panel in Ridgeland, Mississippi. They're calling for the release of the Mississippi Five, a group of women who've been in prison for a long time.
Good evening. Good evening. We're going to go ahead and start.
At the panel, I hadn't known that we were going to hear from several women who'd been locked up themselves. This is one of them, Denise DeQuagan. She's talking to the former head of the state's parole board.
I want to say thank you for allowing me a second chance.
Amen.
I'm grateful for that. Probably, if it wasn't against the law, I'd jump on you and just give you a big old hug.
This moment sticks with me because you can hear the warmth of a whole room of people supporting her. And after she spent decades in prison, the joy and gratitude it's giving her to be free.
They said that I might be back in 30 days, but the devil is a liar. Amen. You understand what I'm saying?
Next year, I want to center the voices of people who've had the life-changing experience of being in prison and the forces that lead people there in the first place.
You've been listening to some of the moments that have stuck with the Gulf States Newsroom's reporting team from 2024, and we have a lot coming up in 2025. We'll be looking at sanitation issues facing the rural South, how millions of dollars in funding to fight the opioid epidemic are or aren't being spent. And this summer will mark the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina and the storm's devastating impact on the Gulf South. Also, the Super Bowl will take place in New Orleans during Mardi Gras season in February, meaning spring is just around the corner. So for this week's Gulf States Gem, a series that shines a light on some of the treasures of the region, community engagement producer Nellie Beckett gives us a little preview of what's coming up when the flowers start to bloom.
In mid-March, Jackson, Mississippi hosts the annual Howell's St. Patty's Day Parade. Unlike the parades of the Northeast, this feels more like Mardi Gras with floats and cookouts. Also in March, there's the 2025 Bridge Crossing Jubilee in Selma, Alabama. It commemorates the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday, the Selma to Montgomery March, and the signing of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. In August, Birmingham hosts one of my favorite cultural events of the year, the Sidewalk Film Festival. It brings hundreds of movies to the gorgeous theaters of the Magic City. There are panel discussions, live script readings, and the best parties of the year. And if music is your thing, there are plenty of music festivals to whet your appetite. In Louisiana, there's French Quarter Fest and the Jazz and Heritage Festival in New Orleans, Festival International de Louisiane in Lafayette. In Mississippi, the Delta Blues and Heritage Festival, Elvis Festival, and Juke Joint Festival. And in Alabama, there's Hangout Fest and Red Bluff Music Festival, to name a few.
You can check out more Gulf States gems from across the region on our Instagram. And we want to hear about a place you consider a gem, like a restaurant, a bookstore, or a natural park. Send us your suggestions. Email connect@gulfstatesnewsroom.org. This week's Gulf States Gumbo was produced by me, Tyler Pratt. We'll be back in the new year with more stories from the Gulf South. Our theme music is by DJ Supreme. Special thanks to our partner stations, WBHM, Mississippi Public Broadcasting, WWNO, and WRKF. You can find us in your podcast feeds every Friday. Look us up and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to stir your roux.